Good evening. Welcome to the National News Broadcast. I'm Kasani Balachandra.
A very good evening indeed. I'm Charita Minaparachi, and let's move on to the headlines for tonight's news. Prime Minister says the development process, which was not halted during the war, will not be suspended before the COVID outbreak. Vaccination of parliamentarians for COVID-19 commences. Minister Pavitravani has been discharged from hospital upon her recovery. Acting Health Minister Professor ChannelEye Rupavahini. President says Sri Lanka should integrate along with global transformations. Warning issued for Americans over a snowstorm. On to those and other stories in detail now, and starting off with local stories. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa says that the development which was not halted during the war period will not be suspended before the COVID outbreak. The Prime Minister made these remarks while taking part in an inauguration ceremony of the construction of the Wayamba Maha project. The project has been initiated under the Irrigation Prosperity Program. The ceremony was held in Irudeniya, Polpitigama in Yapahua area. The Prime Minister inaugurated the project following the unveiling of the commemorative plaque. This would be the main project to distribute the water from Mahavali River in the northwestern province. A 90 kilometers long canal and two reservoirs, Mahakitula and Mahakirura, will be constructed under this project. 5 water supply tunnels also expected to be constructed under the project. Accordingly, the project is set to supply water for 7 large-scale tanks and 350 small-scale tanks in Galevela, Polpitigama, Mahava and Ituweva Divisional Secretariat divisions. 7 medium-scale tanks will be also constructed throughout this project. One of the primary objectives of the project is to provide irrigation water supply for 13,000 hectares of farmer lands annually. As a solution for the prevailing renal disease spread, the project is expected to provide 8,100 square acres of drinking water for the residents of the area. The project will be constructed at a cost of 10.8 billion rupees and with a period of 3 years. Chief Adhikarana Sanganayaka of Northern Western Province, Venerable Recover Jinaratana Thera, conducted the religious observances at the ceremony. The main ceremony of the event was conducted by Chief Adhikarana Sanganayaka of Hiriyala, Hatpatte, Venerable Ganegoda Sri Siddhartha Ratana Jyoti Thera. Addressing the gathering, the Prime Minister said that more than 40,000 families expected to be benefited from this project. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa said that his entire family contested for elections from Hambantota, as his hometown is Madabulana village. He said that he is the only family member to contest the elections from an outside area. He extended his gratitude to the people of both areas for keeping their trust on him when contesting for the elections. The Prime Minister said that following the defeat in 2015, the people in Kurunegala area experienced a difficult period yet kept their trust on him. Accordingly, he said that the government will commit to eradicate all such difficulties of the public who kept their trust on him throughout the time. The Prime Minister added that the government expects to fulfill many aspirations of the people, including complete schools, water supply project, as well as generating new employment opportunities similar to the implementation of this new project. He said that the measure will be taken to further develop the road system to improve the transportation in the area. He said that the construction of the Colombo-Mathura Expressway project as well as the initial activities of the Hambantota port were commenced during the war period. He also said that measures related to the implementation of Mattala Airport and Nonachola power plant was undertaken during the war period as well. Accordingly, the Prime Minister said that the development process of the country will not be hindered amidst the pandemic situation. He said that the government aspirations is to build the nation with a healthy development process amidst a frail world.
නිරෝගී සංවර්ධනයක් වුණු රටක් හදාගන්න. මතක තියාගන්න යුද්ධයේදී අපේ කකුලෙන් අදායම තමයි කොවිඩ් වසංගතයේදී අපේ කකුලෙන් අදින්න හදන්නේ.
Fulfilling a pledge, the Prime Minister presented title deeds for the residents of the area. Ministers Chamal Rajapaksa, Johnston Fernando, S.M. Chandrasena, State Ministers Anuradha Jayaratne, Suripala Kamlath, Dasiri Jayasekara, Governor of Northwestern Province Raja Kolure, and parliamentarians were present at this occasion.
State Minister Professor ChannelEye Rupavahini has been appointed as the Acting Minister of Health until Health Minister Pavitravani returns to duty. The acting minister was sworn in before President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the Presidential Secretariat today. Professor Channeleye Sumana is the State Minister of Pharmaceutical Production, Supply and Regulation. Meanwhile, State Minister Roshan Ranasinghe has been appointed as the State Minister of Provincial Councils and Local Government. He previously held the State Ministerial portfolio of Land Management, State Enterprises, Land and Property Development. State Minister Ranasinghe was sworn in his new State Ministerial portfolio before the President at the Presidential Secretariat today. Meanwhile, 31 jeeps, 4 buses and 10 vans granted by the Japanese government for the use of Sri Lanka police were symbolically handed over to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today. It was presented by Japanese Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Akira Sugiyama. Under the first phase of the grant, worth 1,250 million rupees, 775 million worth 45 vehicles were handed over today. Under second phase and under consignment of vehicles and state-of-the-art search equipment consignment is set to be granted to the country. Minister Dr. Sarath Veerasekara, Secretary to the Ministry Jagat Alvis and IGP C.D. Vikramaratne were present at this occasion.
Cabinet approval has been granted to introduce prepaid transit card for public transport sector. This project will be initiated under a locally owned private company attached to the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Co-cabinet spokesman Minister Uday Gammanpila made these remarks while addressing a media briefing held to announce the cabinet decisions at the Government Information Department today. Co-cabinet spokesman Minister Uday Gammanpila said that the proposed prepaid transit card will project allow cashless transactions which will reduce the cash transmission in the society. He said that corruption and fraud exist in the transport sector can also be prevented through this project. The minister said that the cabinet approval has been granted to initiate solar power plants which could generate 100 kilowatts in connection with 7,000 transformers established across the country. He added that only the business which have been registered with divisional secretariats where the transformers have been established will be allowed to forward bid for the projects. The minister said that cabinet approval has been granted to revoke the charges imposed on flights to land in Mattala and Colombo airports and barking charges in order to further strengthen the tourism sector and to attract more tourists into the country. Accordingly, the minister said that the relevant levies will not be charged from the inbound flights until July 19, 2021. The minister also said that the Minister of Justice has decided to delegate the power to magistrates to investigate any police station in their respective jurisdiction.
කරගැනීමේ අරමුණින් මත්තල රාජපක්ෂ ජාත්‍යන්තර ගුවන් තොටුපළටත් ඒ වගේම කොළඹ ගුවන් තොටුපළටත් පැමිණෙන ගුවන් යානා සඳහා ගුවන් තොටුපළේ ගොඩබෑමේ සහ ගුවන් යානා නවතා
Journalists raised questions regarding the media reports shared over the political affairs of India's Bharatiya Janata Party in Sri Lanka. Co-cabinet spokesman Minister Uday Gammanpila said that no evidence has surfaced claiming that the chairman of Bharatiya Janata Party, Amit Shah, has made such comments and statements. He added that no official statement has been issued to the media in this regard.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa says that Sri Lanka should adapt rapidly with the global transformations. The president made these remarks while taking part at the 2020 convocation of the General Sir John Kotalavala Defence University today. The 31st convocation of the General Sir John Kotalavala Defence University was held at the BMICH premises. 1,379 graduates received their degrees at the convocation covering subject streams of defence studies, management, business management, law, medicine, engineering, promotional management, technical sciences and social sciences. 5 doctorate holders and 263 postgraduate diploma holders were also among them. The trophies for the Best Student Officer from the Sri Lanka Army and the overall Best Student Officer were awarded to the 2nd Lieutenant RMTEP Ratnayaka. The trophy for the Best Student Officer from the Sri Lanka Navy was presented to Lieutenant V.S. Palihavadana, and the trophy for the Best Student Officer from the Sri Lanka Air Force was awarded to Flying Officer RGST Gamage.
Kotalavala Defence University has evolved in a remarkably short span of time from a defence academy catering to the higher educational and training needs of the armed forces to a fully fledged university offering qualifications in many fields to both officer cadets and civilian students. The world is currently in the midst of what has been called the fourth industrial revolution. Building on the digital revolution that took place in the second half of the 20th century, rapid technological innovations in a number of fields are converging to create transformative changes around the world. These changes are taking place as exponential speed and are impacting almost every single industry in every single country. The ongoing global pandemic has only accelerated the pace of these changes further. Every country, every government, and every institution involved in education should therefore take note of these important evolving changes. Sri Lanka must keep pace with these disruptions and transformations taking place globally. We cannot afford to lag behind. Our higher education system must adapt swiftly. It has to offer our students an education that will remain relevant despite fast-changing circumstances and help them find gainful employment in future. Unfortunately, this is an area in which our universities and other higher education institutions need considerable improvement. During the past year, the government employed a large number of unemployed graduates through a special scheme initiated under the Ministry of Public Administration. The skills that are most in demand in today's job market are technology related. There are so many opportunities for graduates in information technology, not only in terms of employment at private sector companies, but also in terms of potential self-employment and in launching new startups. Technology will play a key role in every single economic sector in the future. At minimum, all graduates from our university system need to have some knowledge about new technologies and at least a functional familiarity with computers if they are to have a chance to build successful future for themselves. Globally, thousands of young entrepreneurs have used the skills they acquired through such online resources to launch innovative startups or become successfully self-employed. This is happening in Sri Lanka too, and it is a trend that needs to be supported and encouraged. We must immediately focus on training teachers and improving the quality of teaching in these essential subjects throughout the country. While this is underway, we must also seek new resources and find innovative means to teach these subjects at a high standard at secondary schools island-wide, so that all our students will be better able to face their future with confidence. Universities must assist them in this process and create more productive avenues of study for them to follow. This will enable students at university level to have better prospects after graduating. Instead of finding themselves at a loss after leaving university, which is sometimes the case at present, it is my vision that every single university graduate in future should be able to support themselves and contribute positively towards the country's economy. The changes that we seek in our higher education system are with this purpose in mind. As outlined in the Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor policy document, enhancing the capacity of our higher education system through investment in infrastructure, technology and human resources is a key aim of my government. By increasing the capacity of universities, there will be opportunities for more students to access higher education. Sri Lanka is fortunate to have many extremely talented, competent, and highly qualified individuals involved in the running of its state universities. I am confident that if all of you put in your best efforts, we can achieve the improvements our universities need to become globally competitive, high-quality institutions that will uplift our youth and help strengthen our economy in the future, despite the rapid changes taking place in the world at large today. In concluding, I urge all of you to contribute creatively, positively, and wholeheartedly towards this endeavor for the betterment of our country and our future generations. Thank you.
Parliamentarian, spouse of the Prime Minister Mrs. Shiranti Rajapaksa, Defence Secretary Retired General Kamal Gunaratna and Tri-Forces commanders were present at this occasion.
And moving on to the local update of the COVID-19 pandemic, the epidemiology unit has indicated that AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine has already been administered to more than 192,938 people in the country under the COVID-19 inoculation program. The National Inoculation Program was initiated on January 2019. A total of 3,589 persons received the vaccine yesterday. The officers of the Prisons Department received the COVID-19 vaccine today. The vaccination program was held at the training camp of the Velikada prison. Accordingly, a total of 5,100 prison officers are expected to be vaccinated. The vaccination of parliamentarians was commenced today at the Narahimpita Sri Lanka Army Hospital premises. A total of 19 parliamentarians have received the vaccine today. The number of COVID-19 recoveries in the country has increased up to 70,000. Accordingly, the percentage of fully recovered COVID-19 patients in the country is at 91.73%. Meanwhile, 7.75% of COVID-19 patients are receiving treatments at present, and the amounts to 5,949 patients. 13,268 fully cured patients have left the hospitals from the beginning of the month now. 1,018 such patients were discharged from the hospitals today. Meanwhile, Health Minister Pavitra Vannarachi, who was receiving treatment for COVID-19 at Angoda National Infectious Disease Hospital, was discharged from the hospital today following her complete recovery. Another 353 COVID-19 patients were detected in the island today. 15,430 PCR tests have been conducted yesterday. A total of 1,947,129 PCR tests have been conducted so far in the country. 6 more COVID-19 related deaths were reported yesterday. The victims were residents of Deolan Kadawala, Palle Talavin, Hanwell, Nugegoda, Wattala and Hunnasgiriya. Meanwhile, an urban councillor who was receiving treatment for COVID-19 at Hambantota Provincial Hospital died from the disease yesterday. He was 68 years of age at his demise.
Here's an update on the global situation of the coronavirus pandemic. Coronavirus has killed more than 2.4 million people and infected more than 109.2 million globally. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has approved the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID vaccine for emergency use. The United Nations Health Agency has listed the relatively inexpensive COVID-19 vaccine developed by the University of Oxford and drug maker AstraZeneca for emergency use, days after a panel of experts recommended the use of the products in settings where variants of the coronavirus are circulating. The listing by the UN Health Agency came days after a WHO panel provided interim recommendations on the vaccine, indicating 2 doses with an interval of around 8 to 12 weeks must be given to all adults and can be used in countries with the South African variant of the coronavirus as well. Infections have been reported in more than 210 countries and territories since the first cases were identified in China in December 2019. Also, the World Health Organization has indicated that the international expert team on the COVID-19 origin tracing mission in Wuhan was independent and had no affiliation. Head of the international expert team in Wuhan, Dr. Peter Ben Imbarek, said that their report would be a consensus document with the summary report expected to be published this week. The expert team, composed of 17 international scientists and 17 Chinese counterparts, are working together to publish an interim joint report while presenting recommendations for future studies. Earlier last week, the international team concluded their month-long research in Wuhan and presented their initial findings at a press conference in China, ruling out the hypothesis that the virus escaped from a laboratory. Meanwhile, India has reported more than 11,800 new cases of COVID-19 in the last 24 hours, taking the country's total number of infections to 10.9 million, as the death toll rose by 81 to reach more than 155,000 fatalities. Fears were prevailing that the health system of the world's second most populous country would be affected severely with the coronavirus pandemic. Infections climbed dramatically for months, and India was expected by many analysts to overtake the United States as the country with the highest case toll. But infections continued to plummet in September, and now the country is reporting close to 11,000 new cases a day compared to a peak of nearly 100,000. Experts have suggested many plausible explanations for the sudden drop, including herd immunity in some areas of pre-existing protection from the virus.
Government's prime objective is to create a self-sufficient production-based economy by 2024. Minister Mahinda Gamage, while addressing a media briefing held at the Ministry of Agriculture today, said that the relevant plans to achieve this objective has been formulated. Instead of an agricultural production-based economy, an import-based economy was prevailed in the country in the previous years. The country's foreign exchange continued to exhaust since most crops which can be produced within the country were imported from foreign countries. A sum of 2,100 million rupees has been spent for the importation of big onions, red onions, potatoes, dried chilies, milk powder, maize and other seed varieties during the period of 2019. A sum of 6,000 million rupees has been spent to import 142,086 metric tons of potatoes during the same year, which is 58.29% of the overall potatoes requirement in the country. Even though the country required 243,728 metric tons of potatoes to meet the demand, only 101,642 metric tons of potatoes are being produced locally. In 2019, a total of 496 million litres of milk has been produced locally to fulfill the total requirement of 723 million litres of milk. Accordingly, 424 million litres of milk have been imported into the country by spending 55,650 million rupees, which is 42% of the overall milk requirement in the country. Accordingly, Minister of Agriculture has planned to create a production-based economy within the next 4 years, under the President's Vistas of Prosperity policy statement. The government's aspiration is to create a self-sustaining economy after 2024 and not to import products which can be produced within the country. The government has formulated plans to fulfill the requirements of the country through a production-based economy and export the excess to the production. Accordingly, 16 crop varieties which can be produced locally have been identified at present. Provisions have been allocated for the cultivation of crop varieties which have not been cultivated at present to fulfill the necessary requirements of the country.
A 3-year plan has been drafted for the infrastructure development of the country. This plan has been prepared under the instructions of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa through the program to uplift rural economy. The Gampaha district meeting of the program was held today. Gampaha district's social infrastructure facilities meeting was held with the participation of Ministers Prasanna Ranatunga and Namal Rajapaksa. Lengthy discussions were held at the meeting on the facilities relevant to fields of health, education and sports, as well as island-wide schools, rural hospitals, playgrounds and multipurpose buildings. At the meeting, Minister Prasanna Ranatunga instructed authorities to take immediate measures to resolve 1,032 teacher vacancies existing in Gampaha district at present. A sum of 684 million rupees has been allocated to uplift the health infrastructure facilities in the district. Minister Nama Rajapaksa said that a total of 100 walking paths will be established across the country, including in Gampar district. A special project has been initiated to empower 25,000 youth and women entrepreneurs. A decision was reached at the meeting to select 2 entrepreneurs from each Grama Seva division and provide necessary facilities for them to initiate their new businesses. Minister Nama Rajapaksa said that rural sports development will commence from March 2nd onwards. A provision of 5 million rupees will be allocated for the development of rural playgrounds, while 3 million rupees will be allocated for school playgrounds. The attention was directed on the mitigation of COVID-19 outbreak in the Gampar district at the meeting. State Ministers Dr. Sudarshani Fernando Pulle, Nimal Lansa, Vijitha Berugoda, Lasantha Lagiyavanna, Sisra Jayakodi and Chairman of the Gampar District Coordinating Committee, Parliamentarian Sahan Pradeep, were also present at this meeting. Colombo District Coordinating Committee meeting was held at the Colombo District Secretariat's auditorium. The meeting was chaired by Governor of Western Province Roshan Gunathalaka and Parliamentarian Pradeep Udugoda. Ministers Bandura Gunavardhana, Sarathvira Sekara, Gamini Lokuge and other public representatives were present at this occasion. Lengthy discussions were held on the progress of the development of activities in Colombo District at the meeting, including COVID-19 outbreak and environmental issues.
And meanwhile, provisions worth 160 million rupees have been presented to the suppliers of Sathosa. The presentation of the provisions was held with the participation of Minister Bandula Gunavardhana at the Ministry of Trade. 20 suppliers who had supplied products to Sathosa received the cash awards. Addressing the gathering, the minister said that a due payment of 150 million rupees have been paid accordingly. A newly built 2-storied building at Gampula Attabage Vimaladharma National School was vested with the studentship. The required financial allocations for the project were provided through the Ministry of Education. The ceremony to vest the building with the studentship was held with the participation of State Minister Pyal Nishanta. The event was organized in parallel to the children's tree planting program titled Kakuluturu Udana, initiated at the school premises under the patronage of the President. State Minister Shashindra Rajapaksha and several public representatives were present at this occasion. The medicinal drug nimodipine manufactured by the State Pharmaceutical Corporation issued to the market today. The ceremony was held with the participation of State Minister Professor Channa Jayasubramanian at the corporation premises of Ratmalana. The medicine nimodipine is prescribed to minimize the after effects of occur from brain hemorrhage. The annual requirement of the 30 mg of nimodipine medicinal drug is estimated at more than 1.5 million. The State Minister said a large amount of foreign exchange can be served from the production of the medicinal drug locally. 33rd anniversary of the commemoration of late Vijay Kumar Tunga falls today. Late Vijay Kumar Tunga, who addressed the country's politicians as a humanitarian, was a versatile character who has managed to win the hearts of common masses in the country through several fields. Accordingly, a commemoration ceremony was held in the Polhengudu area where he was brutally murdered. A statue of late Vijay Kumar Tunga was also unveiled during this occasion.
9 winners of the lottery draws of the National Lotteries Board received their respective checks from Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa at the Temple Trees today. Accordingly, the National Lotteries Board has awarded more than 520 million rupees for the lottery winners during a period of 3 months. The winners have gained their respective prizes from Mega Power, Goviseta, Mahajana Sampata, Supirivasana and Dhananidana lotteries. Chairman of the National Lotteries Board, Attorney at Law Lalit Piyum Pereira, was also present at this occasion.
And with that, we conclude tonight's news. Do just tomorrow at the very same time. Stay safe. Good night.
Good night.